Hello, everybody. We're Digital Eclipse, and we're going to be streaming today. I'm Ian. This is Johnny.
Johnny, yeah.
Johnny and Alex. And we're going to be streaming Kentucky Route Zero or Kentucky Route Zero.
Kentucky Fried Zero.
Kentucky Fried Zero. Yeah, there it is.
Which is a favorite game of John's. John, why don't you tell us? Johnny,
yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So, Kentucky Route Zero is this game. It's been sort of like one of those episodic story games that was like fashionable to do like 5 or 6 years ago. That people like. I think another one was like Stranger Things. There's a few other ones, but the sort of weird thing about it is this one sort of never finished until as of like 3 days ago. So, so episode 5 actually just came out, and I actually haven't even played it yet. I'm playing through the whole game again on my own before I get to it. But yeah, I discovered this game when I was like a sophomore or junior in college, I guess it would have been.
God, you're so young.
Yeah.
You're so young.
And I was actually going to go to grad school, and I was preparing to apply to grad school at that time, or get ready to start doing that. And instead of doing that, I got into game development because I played this game. So...
That's high praise.
Yep. So... it's really cool. I like it a lot. It's a slow story game, so I'll be trying to sort of like take it slow and just sort of like talk about sort of the design elements of the game that I think are really interesting that set it apart from other sort of, I guess what you would call walking simulators or point-and-click adventure games, etc.
So all I know about this game is that it had cute pixel art, that reminded me a lot of traditional LucasArts adventure games, which are like my favorite set of games ever.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not super into the whole walking simulator genre, so I was afraid that if I ever played it myself, I would be very frustrated by it. But I'm eager to see what it's about.
Cool. So the release cycle of this game was they kind of released like an episode every year or more. I think it's been 2 years since they released the 5th episode, which is up here. Between each release, they released a small game that is very short, but they're all very different. And I don't want to spoil the game in case anybody does play it because they're so good, like all these little things. Limits and Demonstrations is a museum exhibit of art.
These are the games.
These are all chapters in the game or portions of the game, but they released little things in between each chapter to world build, essentially.
Well, wait. Which are the chapters and which are the in-betweens?
The numbers of the chapters.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah. Limits and Demonstrations is a museum, a museum that you visit in the world of Kentucky Route Zero of art pieces that can't really exist in the real world. They're like magical realist art pieces within the game. So that's a weird thing. The entertainment is a 2-hour play you watch in the game. Here and There Along the Echo is a sort of classic point-and-click adventure game done using phone prompts, like you call it on your phone to play it.
Huh.
And Un Pueblo de Nada is a sort of reimagining...
That's Spanish for...
the Plateau of Nothing.
The House of Nothing?
The House of Nothing, yeah.
That'd be the Casa de Nada. I don't really speak Spanish very well.
Yeah. But regardless, that is sort of a classic adventure game where they did a lot of updates to the UI and UX of how text-based choosing works, which is a really interesting piece unto itself. Anyway, that's the whole context for the existence of the game.
Before you jump in, I want to say I was admiring before we started just how uncomfortable this screen makes me feel. It's a very interesting visual presentation. And I also want to point out that they're totally jaggies. Whatever.
Yeah. Cool.
Learn to anti-alias, noobs.
Nope.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the visual aspects of this game are definitely, I think, one of the most appealing aspects of it. It really is like David Lynch made pixel art.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's very strange.
All right, well, we're gonna rock it. We're launching. We're taking off. All right, so there's no voice acting in the game, so
Do we have to read the voice acting?
we have to sort of read it. I'm happy to read it as much or as little as people want. The game starts at Equus. There's a lot to talk about in this initial scene alone. I imagine we won't actually get through much of the game because a big part of why I wanted to do this is so I could talk to everyone about just how much game design goes into a game where the only thing you do is choose dialogue options.
Super cool.
So,
a big head?
If we take a look here and we just sort of stop.
Oh, it's a horse.
It is a horse head.
Okay.
That will come up very shortly. Just a quick look at the scene they set up here. We're at Eclipse, which is clearly a gas station. This is sort of an Art Deco style for a gas station, which is sort of unusual unto itself in terms of the visual architecture they chose for the scene. And that actually sort of blends itself, that Art Deco geometry style, against sort of like the clouds and the mountains behind you, and that sort of like cascading diamonds look.
Is there an evil magician or a 20s movie villain chilling on a bench in the middle there?
There is a person we'll talk to chilling on a bench, whose name is Joseph. So we can take a look at our truck. The controls of the game are very simple. You use the D-pad to sort of select things, to select prompts, and then just the control stick to move around.
What is that?
On the thing.
Also, how many times have you played through this, out of curiosity?
I've played this chapter, like this, the episode 1 of this game, probably like 8 or 9 times. But that's because I meet someone, I show them the game, and then we play it together, and then they're like, "What's that?" And then we play it again. You know what I mean? It's like showing your friends stuff.
Makes sense.
What's the green line?
So the green line, that's script notation for the end of a dialogue.
Okay.
We're going to talk about this in a second, but the text and the prompts and the way things work is very clear, in part because instead of inventing a new UI, a new sort of like UI for reading things quickly and efficiently, they reused what movie writers use and used screenplay formatting for everything. Script formatting, essentially.
Okay, I might be the only one here who doesn't know any of that.
So when you submit a movie script, you write it in a certain way. This is your dog, by the way, that I just interacted with, an old hound and a straw hat. Both have seen better days. So in script writing, there is a particular format you use to write out what the script looks like. That's what you're looking at right now. The reason they do that is because there's a lot of cold reads in the process of introducing actors and people to it. So it needs to be a format where people can quickly read it and understand all the context that's going on. So they use that same format. Whenever there's green on the screen, that usually means you can press a button to continue.
So how did you run over, like, what are the controls outside of dialogue?
Control stick to move around, and then D-pad to select prompts.
Free 3D space?
Sometimes it's a 3D space, sometimes you're on rails.
Okay.
Yep.
You can't even read the text on the screen.
Oh, no.
We can read it fine? Oh, that's so weird.
No, I mean on this is fine.
Why is it so bad over there?
Well, because it's squished. Can we go to a format where we're not on the screen? We'll just talk about it?
Wait,
Do we have a layout with the game full screen? That's your job.
We'll try and resolve this.
Do we have the chat?
Nobody's here. Nobody's said anything. Yep. See the chat.
Oh, okay.
Nobody likes you, John. They're
That's
just not
okay.
saying anything.
That's fine. Anyway, so you can't really see it on stream, but basically it goes bold name, colon, and then text. So a lot of games don't do this. They actually do, like, you're looking at someone and they have like a bubble that pops up over their head that will say like, oh, this person's talking. They'll use exclamation marks, use other iconography. Kentucky Route Zero eschews all of that and just writes out all the text like it would be if you were looking at a screenplay. While they fiddle with this, we'll see if it gets any better.
Ooh,
Oh, look at that.
getting there. Almost.
Soon we're going to see what Joseph is saying.
That's what I was getting at, so. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, well, I'm going to read the text.
Sure, sounds good.
So Joseph says, damn, did you hear that wreck? Truck full of bottles? I don't know, beer bottles, whiskey, lost tire or something. Spilled booze and glass all over the interstate. What a mess. I hope they don't come down here looking for anything. We blew a damn fuse and it's all shut off. So obviously Ecosoils has no power. And now Joseph asked me, did I hear a dog? What's your dog's name? And this is sort of the fundamental dialogue interaction of the game. This is a very standard format.
So why was his lantern out when you first arrived?
He was sitting in the dark, and then when I talked to him, he turned it on.
Okay.
Yep. And we're actually going
Are
to
we
get that
naming
lantern
the
in a
dog?
moment. We are now naming our dog for the entire game. Does anyone have a preference?
I feel like Homer and Blue are poor options. I almost like a dog in a straw hat with no name.
Okay, how do you feel?
I have the song I'm Blue stuck in my head, so I'm the wrong person to ask.
Okay, well, this is just some dog, and we don't know his name. Joseph, we got a couple of cats that look around. Well, I bet he's a nice dog anyway, well behaved, or he'd be after my dinner. It's strange, yeah, the text is strangely not rendering well for some reason, and I don't know why.
Is there in-game text options? Can you blow up the text?
Let's see.
Nice. Mammoth. Mammoth text. Did that help?
Hold on.
Right, fuck it. So go on. I'll just deal with it.
Oh man, why is it terrible?
Sucks.
Whoa.
It's so strange that it doesn't render the text out.
Let me try some stuff.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump in and do some.
We're doing technical difficulties.
It looks like to me like just to be honest.
Sweet. What a weird thing to have happen.
That's very strange. I do like that the game is accessible to lions and mammoths, so
That's true. That's good.
That's good.
All animals count.
All
All
games should be
animals.
like that.
All right, so there's actually like even more design elements to even really kind of dive into and how they're presenting the information to you. This is a really good case of when to not reinvent the wheel. If you're in Cadet Root Zero, you do a lot of reading. So, it's gone. You do a lot of reading, and part of doing a lot of reading is the sort of choosing a format in which players are going to be able to read easily and well, and that format already exists in the screen text format. And they actually use the same text that you see a lot, or very similar text to what you would see in like a screenplay, the way it's written now, because it's meant for just reading. So it's a good example of not reinventing things. So now we're going to get some jerky for Homer.
So the choices that you're making, how much do they affect the events that transpire in the game?
Very little. It's pretty linear. It's more about changing the emotional context of the story beat than it is about changing the actual story events. And what I mean by that is when you choose different things, the way characters react and respond is going to sort of change the emotional context of the scene. So you do have some agency there, and a lot of it is controlling, it's like sort of a little bit of customization, a little bit of like personality. What's up, Justin?
Hi.
That's okay. We're having like a
sitting.
significant technical difficulty where no text is rendering on the stream, which is super weird. Rendering is not the right word, but like showing up on the screen, it's just like all jagged.
This, yeah.
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 So we're just talking about it. Anywho.
Cool.
So what's cool about like a lot of the setup here, the sort of TLDR of the setup.
First episode, right?
This is the very first episode, very first scene.
Played this a long time ago.
The contextual setup is here is we are an antiques driver and we're looking for 5 Dogwood Drive is the address. And we're being told that Dogwood Drive's on the other side of well. To get there, you've got to take the 0. And you will learn in episode in the first sort of season of this, the 0 is an underground highway system that sort of like exists on the other side of reality, for a better like phrasing of it. It is a magical underground network of highways and roads.
Alex, did you play this?
Yeah, I played
Okay.
episode 3, I think.
Oh, jeez.
Cool.
No spoilers.
I'm
Also,
trying.
No spoilers.
Yeah, for sure. I know like everything
I
about
mean,
this game.
honestly, I can't remember any of this. I'm gonna find
I won't say it.
Hey, what happened?
Fixed it.
How'd you fix it?
40 instead of 720.
Cool.
Nice.
Did you use an array of?
Oh, I lost my seat.
Oh, you're over here.
Here.
Oh, my bad.
Al, we can all fit.
No, scooch him.
Alright,
I
you
don't
can
know
sit
what
back there.
I missed some of the
I
story.
can hang up again.
So start over.
I'll
So
just
there's-
pace around back here.
Yeah. So anyway, well, now we'll get back into it. Now that we have text again, and I'll make the text big so it's easy to see on screen. And then also I'll go down here to the multiplayer settings, which they included in this build of the game. There's now a multiplayer feature. These are the instructions. You play until you encounter something: an image, a sound, a choice of words, a notable absence that reminds you of someone else in the room. Pass control of the game to that
That's
person.
awesome.
You don't have to explain yourself, and so on. So this is the multiplayer feature they added for the
That's pretty cool.
for the complete thing, which is pretty cool. That's I would say high effort to get multiplayer into a game, obviously.
Multiplayer's
But
hard, so nice job.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wish it was online multiplayer, but this is.
Yeah.
This is
It's
pretty
a second.
cool.
It's a second best, but it's good.
Digitally
It's definitely couch co-op. All right. So to catch you up, Ian, on the story so far, we've talked to Joseph, and really the only context we have at this point is our name is. We're looking for 5 Dogwood Drive. We're an antiques driver, and that's our truck, and that's
So
our
we can
dog.
look at him. We can talk to him. What's the thing at the bottom?
This is turn the lantern on and off,
Ah, okay.
which we now have access to.
Contextual.
Yes.
Cute.
And we can look at the attendant and just sort of, in the classic sort of adventure game style, investigate something about the attendant. So, yeah. Apparently he has a Queen Anne armchair out in front of his gas station, which is pretty awesome.
I wish I had one of those at my gas station.
Yeah, for real. All right, so we need to go and flip the generators to the gas station to get it up and running. And we're
Why
going to
didn't
have...
he do that? Does he not work here?
He does work here, but he's not feeling the impulse to do it, I guess. So as we get close to a thing to prompt, it'll prompt us. And now I'd like to comment on this transition. We're now sort of in this basement space. I didn't actually really notice this the first time I played the game, and this is one of the ways that Kentucky Route Zero really tries to get you to just slow down and look at things, but we're actually inside the body of a horse geometrically.
Oh, how about that?
So if we go down to the end here, this is the horse's foot, right? And you can see the hoof of the horse sort of extending out there. So we are inside of a horse in terms of where we are in this
Watch out
basement.
for Trojans.
Exactly, they're coming for me. We have a sign. Sign's got some rules. That's good. No open flames near gasoline seems good. No consumption of beer or spirits on the premises. In case of sudden darkness, do not panic. Relax. Count backwards from 5. Strictly limit time spent in the basement to fewer than 3 minutes of every hour.
Uh-oh.
Those seem
This
like
is our
some.
first challenge.
Every hour.
Those
Here
seem
we
like
go.
some good rules.
So if you're at like 157, you could just be there for 3 minutes,
There's
and then
people.
bam, be from there from 2
Basement
to
people.
3.
Why are there basement people sitting in the dark? That also makes me
Are
very
they playing D&D?
Yeah. Well, get used to being uncomfortable. This game's main sort of thematic ideas.
It's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, the game is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable because it mostly deals with alcoholism, addiction, and poverty as like its main themes in the American Rust Belt. And it does that by evoking a lot of magical realist tropes, which are pretty creepy. So,
I don't know what magical realist tropes are, but that's probably outside of the context of this.
hey, what's up, Code Marv? How's it going? Looks like I got some friends from the Netrunner community, which is cool. So Emily, Ben, and Bob are behind a worn card table. Papers, oddly shaped dice, and highway maps cover the tabletop. It's pretty
Oh,
cool.
they're playing D&D.
Looks like it. Let's see what Emily, Bob, and Ben are up to. So we're going to try and talk to them. Well, we need the breaker box, so we should ask about it. Did you hear something? No, sorry, I was looking at the rules again. It's a common board game experience. You rolled a 5, right? That means pick up your marker and move it anywhere on the map. Okay.
What's up? Joe's Key says Code Marvelous.
Hey!
California Knuckle Guy says what up?
So they're playing a board game, and they're sort of trifling over the rules of this board game, it looks like. They don't quite get to figure out how to make it work. So they lost their 20-sided die, which is kind of a bad thing.
He owned it.
But it should be easy enough to find. It glows in the dark.
Oh, so turn your lantern on. I see. Ah.
Using your brain here. You can keep talking to them. So most things in Kentucky Route Zero, they prompt you with the thing you need to do to advance the story, and then they provide you with as much time and usually seemingly limitless amount of just like talking to people and reading things and looking at things that you want to do before you advance the story to sort of experience it. So obviously we need to get through. It seems like the breaker's on the other side of this table. I think it rolled.
Tables are, not something you can normally pass by.
Of course. Especially when there's so many people around it. Cool.
John, I'm a little concerned because you're hitting that 3-minute mark.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to. So obviously these people are not responding to my presence at all, which is very strange. Ask about what kind of game it is. I think you were right about the instance crisis rolls. There's a whole separate table of them in the back. I don't like that rule anyway. It's not fun. It's just random and frustrating. The randomness is what makes it realistic, Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
So, seem to be trifling over the rules. So let's throw out the
They're
light.
playing a game and then they lose one of their die, and then they just sit there and just wait for someone to show and be like,
Dies
"Oh,
off
you find
over
it."
here. Ooh, game piece.
So I did like this game when I played it. I actually think this opening puzzle was a bit misleading to me because I thought it was kind of a cute, clever little piece of gameplay. Like it was a little puzzle, right? But there's really
They
not
don't do
much
stuff
of
like this again.
No, they really
No, they
don't.
don't really do
I
this
was
a
getting
lot.
excited.
I know. That's kind of how I felt.
Throw away.
I'm not talking
so-
about it.
Spoke gameplay.
So, a lot of the design of Kentucky Route Zero is about things that, like, there's not really any puzzles in the game. This is probably the closest thing that approaches a puzzle in the entire game of Kentucky Route Zero. So, I'd like to comment on a few ways in which it kind of, like, uses these little moments. Mostly, it ties a single action to a narrative meaning. So, you pick up the dice. This is actually very important. You pick up this dice. And then we walk over here. And it does do the thing where it'll actually walk for you if you want it to. And then the table's gone.
No,
The
the
people
table's
are
still
gone.
there.
The people are gone.
That's weird.
So we have a big choice, of course.
I would put it on the table.
Yeah, in case they come back, right?
Yeah, they were looking for it.
They were kind of being jerks, though. I don't know.
You can go ahead and flip the breaker, and now you get to see the whole body of the horse for a brief moment here.
I actually did not notice the horse body when I played through this.
Yeah, so a lot of Kentucky Route Zero, it's very intentionally, and this is the thing about sort of the puzzle solving. This is a big conceptual difference from something like Monkey Island versus Kentucky Route Zero. Is the game is actually trying to get you to, as often as possible, not keep the game moving, which is a very strange thing for a game to want to do. It's trying to get you to just sit in a place and observe it and think about it. And there's a lot of gameplay elements they use to get you to not keep moving and instead sit and look at what you have.
There's a cello.
Exactly. So there's these elements now. So there's a cello, and we're in the body of a horse, which is very strange. So keep progressing. Now, aha, light.
It got later. You must have
did.
been down there a while.
More than 3 minutes, that's
more
for
than
sure.
3 minutes. So it's interesting. That's another thing that you observed just by looking at sort of the context of what's happening. And almost all of the mechanics of Kentucky Route Zero are about
Nutshell
observing.
says, can't stay for long, thought I'd stop by.
Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, Infinite Nutshell. So again, if you just sort of like blaze through here, you might not notice that it's dark now, but it is. So you'll look the text of the word zero.
Something's wrong with it.
Yes. Sort of creepy.
Makes me uncomfortable.
Something otherworldly. Would this game have like multiple choice, like dialogue choice options?
Yeah, so there's always multiple dialogue options, but the way the mechanic is used is to change the emotional context of the scene. So that's like the main way the context works is when you choose an option, the kinds of responses you will get are sort of emotionally different. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at what they're scrolling in the background of zero.
Well, earlier on?
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I think it's an image. I can't be sure.
What is about it was?
So there's a password to a computer we need to figure out. It's muscle memory. He doesn't really remember the name. It's a kind of long, kind of short poem. One of those short poems that really sums it all up. And we'll figure it out.
John, one of the other cool things about this game and the dialogue is when you are talking and when you're reading off of the game, I'm having a hard time figuring out if you're just talking and just having some cool anecdote to say about this, or if it's like the game is just like,
Yeah.
the dialogue is just really good.
I'd also like to say this is probably like the best written game I've ever played. the actual quality of the writing is very, very high, and there's a lot of care that went into very small details in it, which I really appreciate.
Also, Jamie says hello.
Hi, Jamie.
Don't wave at the chat. Wave at the cam.
Sorry. And we wake a computer from its reverie. So we can actually type ourself in if we want. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
That's wrong.
It's not real.
Everything's
Joseph's the name of
flickering.
the guy.
I'm not comfortable.
So Joseph is the name of the gas station attendant. Password. So again, the password is a poem. Does anyone want to pick something? We're composing a poem.
I like the stars.
Yeah, I was gonna go for that. Totally. What?
Nice.
Oh, I thought you picked something and you typed something else, and that also was going to make me very uncomfortable.
We're composing it. Any other takers?
I'm tempted to like try to write a good poem or the worst poem possible.
Whichever.
Well, I don't think we should talk about accidents in our poem.
Say it's late.
Okay.
The moon drops.
I don't like throbbing things
Yeah.
either.
But it's like
It's late. Stars drop away. It's late.
Ooh, it will get later.
Yeah, that's true. That does kind of sum it all
Password
up.
accepted.
dude, we're really good poets.
And
Also good hackers.
also good hackers. I think it might be mostly Netrunners watching because I did share it with the Netrunner people. The thing we just did is we composed a poem, and that's how we interacted with the computer. This is a theme that's going to get brought up a lot
We're gonna
in
compose a lot of
Kentucky Route
poems?
Zero. Well, we're not going to compose a lot of poems, but we're going to interact
with a lot of computers.
We'll interact with a lot of computers.
Interesting.
And the
I
way,
would not have guessed that.
yeah, there is a really strong.
001.
Yeah. There's a lot of relationship. One of the big themes of Kentucky Route Zero is a relationship between how humans interact and how we use computers to sort of like enhance our humanity.
We can talk about the big O notation of our interactions.
That's true. We could.
Yeah, we should go to games.
Ooh. And this is where we play a different game that's in the game. Oh.
Correct.
What a commentary on
What are we trying to do?
We're trying to find the address of someone named Marquez.
That's probably in the address book. Yeah.
Maybe.
We're looking for Marquez.
We're looking for
Is it gonna say the zero isn't real? Ah, knew it.
A lot of things aren't real. According to this computer.
Yeah. We'll go for Marquez. 100 Macondo Lane. Head northeast on 65. These are relevant directions, which you
That's
can
where I keep
pull up.
Macondo.
Got him. Head northeast on 65. Turn left as soon as you see the ugly tree that's always on fire.
Hey, I'm gonna remember northeast. You remember 65. Ian, you remember turn left.
And Alex, you remember on fire.
On fire, I got it.
Northeast.
Wait, was it on fire or on ice? On water? What was it?
Are you reading messages?
We're screwed.
I'll read his
Oh,
messages.
A fire.
That's
Like fire.
You can read his message. Messages if you
It's
want.
confusing.
Is that what you're doing?
No. He's just talking to me. He's shouting at me.
Ah.
So while we were on the computer, he loaded an old TV of his in the truck. And he borrowed it from Ms. Marquez, apparently.
I don't think he did that. I don't think he moved at all. I think he's lying.
Well, now we have a TV in our truck. It's a nice TV, apparently. All right. So we kind of have the setup here. We're an antiques delivery driver. We're looking for the zero so we can get to 5 Dogwood Drive.
You got the dog?
We can talk to our dog.
Yeah.
The dog never replies to you. You just say things at the dog.
Great.
This prompt at the computer where you composed a poem, you can think about that as very similar to a lot of the interactions you have in Kentucky Route Zero. It's setting up the game mechanic of the actual words you use to be the emotional context of the interaction, which is a very different way of thinking about a game mechanic. Because mostly as designers, when we think about game mechanics, we think about like input, output, challenge, like like tuning, things like that. But what Kentucky Route Zero is doing is, again, by extending the metaphor from, person to computer, how humans interact with computers, it's saying by making a choice, you're changing the emotional context.
It's coloring how you're reading the game.
So the game mechanic of making a choice is also the game mechanic of how you feel about the thing that's happening. And you're expressing it to the game, in a sense.
So, just to get super explicit, like you saying, for example, to your dog, "What do you think of this place?" might express that you're uneasy about your situation. Okay.
Perhaps to you, like, we're uneasy about it. And so we're sort of like, in a sense, we're not like doing anything that has a traditional gameplay meaning. We're doing something that has an emotional meaning to us, that is unique to us. So yeah, I never noticed this place driving by. And I'm going to give my dog a treat because I'm a very good owner. And you are definitely getting that treat.
That's a bad place to say that.
Yeah, he's right there.
He's kind of ugly.
He's a good man, a good boss. So, and of course, like all like classical style adventure games, we're going to get our sort of our emotional context or our narrative context from the scene as well, along with our emotional context occasionally. So there's this guy Ira. He was a good man, a good boss. So Ira's clearly
The
dead.
dog used to work for Ira?
Yeah, I was confused.
I think he's saying, much like when you talk to dogs, you might say something about your day, but you're just verbalizing something you feel out loud. Because you know that your dog is not going to respond to you, as the dog doesn't in this context.
When I say, who's a good boy,
You're saying you're a good boy.
I'm a good boy. It's
Yes,
basically
Yeah, you're a good boy.
just making sure.
Alex, we all know you're a good boy, okay?
I just wanted to
Me,
make sure. Okay?
I'm the good boy.
No, Ian.
Who's
I'm
a
the
good boy?
boy.
No, not you, dog.
Wait. Oh, right.
Yeah.
And of course, in the screenwriting sense, this is in screenwriting, when you move from scene to scene without dialogue, you use parentheticals. So we would say, Conway gets back on the road, or Conway lingers, which of course is stay or go, if we want.
Should I stay or should I go, man?
Exactly. All right,
That was not on key at all. That was terrible.
You did great, Ian.
I was really proud.
Thank you.
I remember getting really lost in this game.
You're supposed to.
We gotta get northeast.
I would do it though.
We got to get to the
Northeast opened
zero.
up fire and there's a weird tree.
So, here we are. We're at Equus Oils, and we can use our thumbstick to sort of move around on the roads with our car.
So good.
Do we have gas?
We don't have gas. Eventually, we have a radio, but we also have this book that basically tells us, like, it's the classic, like, this is what you're supposed to do. Head northeast on the 65 and turn left as soon as you see that ugly tree that's always on fire. Okay.
Always on fire.
Notably, though, you don't have to do that, and you can take any number of side paths to anywhere you like in this game.
Are there
You're a
things to
terrible
find, though?
antique delivery person.
We're wasting gas.
Oh, I forgot to use your gas.
Along
Those dotted lines rivers?
they are.
Wait, do you actually have gas in this?
Did you find
No.
a diner?
Yeah. And you can interact with things 24 hours. These are story beats that are sort of like contextualizing the greater world of Kentucky Route Zero in some way. And you can sort of engage them how you want. For now, because these tend to be sort of narrative expositions, we can sort of move along.
Car does not have gas. We just discussed that.
No, it does not have gas.
That'd be great. You just get stuck on the middle of a line.
And then it's like, well, that's the game.
Yep.
So we're supposed to drive along the 65 till we find a burning tree. Ah, yes.
Hey, there's burning
That
trees.
tree might be on fire.
But is it always on fire?
It's
Yeah,
very
see if it
abstract.
goes out. It might not always be on fire.
A tall black oak burns in the hill above the road.
Is this allegory?
It is. Well done. So, this map, by the way, you can go anywhere on it. It's quite big, and you can spend as much time as you want basically exploring as much side content as you want. And some of those side contacts actually, like, you, like, go to a literal place, and you're like, whoa, now I'm, like, in a scene, and you can walk around and talk to people. So it's not as though, like, we're going to just go to the Marquez farmhouse, which is where we're supposed to go next to progress the story. But in general, you can spend as little or as much time as you want. And there's a lot of details on the way this map is constructed that sort of like imply that in terms of its visual design, which I think is pretty cool. Just like the way in which it like sort of tells you where to go, but like offers you divergent paths on the way up to your destination to sort of hint that to you. So,
and do other things like the way that the tree revealed itself?
yes.
Are there other things like side path things that would reveal itself?
Tons. So Act 2, Scene 2, we missed it at the start, but Act 1, Scene 1 was where we were at Equus Oils, and this is, again, the same structure as a screenplay. It's the same writing format. Carry that metaphor through. And we can keep talking to our dog, which is nice.
You're gonna overfeed your dog.
Yeah.
My dog's very old.
It's not good.
You know, I talk about this with my dogs. It's like my dogs are like 7. When they're like 15, it's like they're getting extra big dinners. You know, it's like they're getting to that point.
That's fair.
You can sort of investigate things as you could in any adventure games. Keep looking at stuff. So this is a game mechanics moment that I really like. I like this moment for a few reasons. The first reason is that you just sort of walk into the darkness, which is something that most games never have you do. They always try to make sure you understand where you're going before you go there. That's sort of a classic sort of game design thing that most designers know, is like you want to light the path. Connect Grid Zero does that to some extent. You can see there's like a dirt path that goes up into the distance. They don't really like to show you where you're going. And this is something that's going to come up a lot throughout the whole game, is they don't like to show you where you're going. So we're going to go up this path. The second thing is it takes a really long time to walk up this path. So we're going to start walking up it. And this is much longer than most games would have you walk up a path. Later in the game, you're going to come back here and you're going to have a broken leg, which is all in the same act. And it's going to take you like quadruple the time to get up here, and it's going to make you walk the whole way.
Nice.
So you might say, like, from a gameplay experience as a game designer, why would we make the player spend 5 times as long to get to the place that they've already been? Right? Like, that seems sort of like a strange thing to do in game design.
Because we hate them.
Yeah, because we hate them, of course. But secondly, it gives you moments to think about what's happened before and to sort of prepare you for what's happening next. And there's sort of like a big twist at the end of this act that sets up the next
it's like adding pacing into
Correct.
the game.
And again, that's another way in which Kentucky Route Zero encourages you to stop moving forward.
So I see that
and
you have
think.
a TV. Weren't you delivering something else?
Well, Joseph gave us a TV to bring to the Marquez residence because he
You
borrowed it
you
from
wanted
her.
to go there somewhere for another reason, I thought.
Yes, Marquez knows the way to the Zero.
Ah, we were just going to show up at somebody's house and ask for directions.
Yes. I guess I didn't see an owl.
That's true. I didn't.
That was
see
the last question she asked me. We'll answer that one first. Big ugly thing, all sound and fury.
Usually-
Who's that writer? That's a reference to someone who wrote something famous.
Isn't that Shakespeare?
Faulkner.
Faulkner?
There you go. Yeah. By you saying Shakespeare, it made me realize it was Faulkner.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking to Weaver Marquez, who's sort of talking about this house that she lives in.
A Weaver is her name.
Yes.
Weaver is very
She knows
chatty.
about hash maps.
Are you looking for something to figure out? So what's cool about this, and this is another way in which they sort of drive the emotional tension of the scene and how you want to do it, is the way they've written this is it asks, what do you do for work? Is it too difficult or do you like it much? I was once a mathematician. Are you looking for something in particular here? So this is a very frantic dialogue style. There's a lot of questions being thrown at you, but you only get to answer one thing, essentially. And you can't like go back, and you can't do the adventure thing very often in Kentucky Route Zero, where you can go back and be like,
Do all options.
I want to see every option. You don't really get to do that. The sort of like thing you pick is like the exposition you get. So the experience you're having with the characters is very driven by like sort of like your motivations as a player. When I first played the game, I was very much in the like, I'm trying to go to the next thing mindset. So I just kept asking like, hey, I'm looking for the Zero. Hey, I'm looking for how to go to this place. Hey, this is what I want. And as I've thought about the game more, I actually spend a lot more time answering the sort of like questions that don't make sense. Like, why would you ask me that?
Like less being like goal oriented, more like exploratory.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost.
It's like narrative exploratory.
Yeah.
So, Road to a 0.
Blind man.
Apparently Joseph is blind, which you learn now. There's actually a lot in the dialogue that suggests he's blind if you thought about it. He says...
Because he was sitting in the dark.
Oh,
Yes.
There's
a lot.
like, how, why
And he
can't
talks
you go,
about the hum of the lights and stuff.
why can't
Yeah,
you go
exactly.
into all the
That's cute. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's why
so
you
the
can't
game,
use the
like,
computer.
and this is why when I talk about game design, it's one of those things where we have a conventional sense of understanding game design as being mechanics, but the way we're tying all the pieces together here are creating a sort of game design language that are sort of causing you to slow down and think and read and like ponder why the information is being presented to you the way it is. And I also totally understand that if I usually when I come home from work, I don't want to play Kentucky Route Zero. I want to play like Rocket League or something, you know, like or like League of Legends or like a conventional game. But if you're in the mindset for a game like this, it's very rewarding because it's very good at setting up all of the tiny details. And that cello you noticed is a detail that will get revisited. You know, like all those little things that you're seeing and observing in the game, all these things get revisited. And the way you get rewarded in Kentucky Route Zero isn't by like getting more points or like getting to the next stage. It's by seeing the setup and observing it and seeing the payoff of the setup as it sort of unfolds narratively and visually, which is really cool.
I have a question about this house.
Mhm.
Where's her bedroom?
I don't know. Maybe it's in the garage?
Yeah, that's the only thing I could like. There's got to be a bed in between that garage door and that window.
There must be.
Yeah, there's a disturbing lack of toilets as well.
Maybe there's a basement.
So he said you were too smart to watch TV. That is a nice thing to say, but he was wrong. I'm not as smart as I used to be. Well, actually, I suppose I am as smart as I used to be, but never any smarter. I don't learn anything new anymore. I write some figures, but nothing radical. Okay. Very self-aware woman. All right. So he brought the
Infinite
TV.
Nutshell's asking about Disco Elysium. Did we see it?
Disco Elysium. I don't think so. That's a game that just came out recently, I think.
It was good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's,
Okay.
You were just bad mouthing it the other day.
okay, well, if you want to call me out, I can critique it.
I loved it.
Look, just because Alex has game design opinions about everything because he's a game designer doesn't mean he didn't enjoy the game.
I did. I liked it. I did
wanna
vent
like it.
about
I
some
wanna
parts I didn't,
start
but
by it because it looks amazing.
it does look
I
very
don't
good.
know if it's the kind of game that I would be into.
It's
Alright,
it's
so-
very cool.
We're going to set up the TV and then Weaver's going to tell us how to get to the zero.
Okay,
Good luck. That's what I said.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Y'all seen Disco Alive?
Do you have gray hair?
Yeah, I would just they just answer that.
We were just talking about it, Bill.
Okay. Missed that.
Even just these shots are awesome.
All right, so again,
Is
it's
that a barn with
that
a
is a-
weird ass symbol on it?
yes,
some
and also two
buttons?
horses.
A windmill?
Is one of those horses a gas station?
There's themes coming together. Horsepower, gas stations. Yeah.
Oh,
We have a lot going on here. All right, so again, we're sort of in like a new narrative
That's
context.
terrible, Jeff.
I know.
No.
So apparently, I set up the TV badly, and I'm being ridiculed for
Just
it.
came back and they don't touch it.
It is a foreign. Is it a foreign
Just came back
object to you?
there. I
Right?
had to cut off on the screen.
Which of your parents was it who wouldn't allow you to watch television?
What?
And then, of course, you can take the very brash route. Like, I know how to set up a TV, all right? Well, she's skeptical. So this is a mechanical moment. The game's saying you haven't been paying attention because the first time you play the game, it's very likely you have not been paying attention. Because the game is very intentionally trying to get you, and it does this in a lot of ways, and it's doing it sort of subtly, but it's trying to get you to slow down and look at things. It does that in the scene transitions from, you know, like we just had this like really dramatic transition that was really different from anything we've seen. It's trying to get you to like slow down and like look at details of things. It's time to start paying attention now. Look closely at the television.
Okay, let's do it. That's not the television.
No, no,
We're
you're
missing the
TV.
television.
No. Oh, you overshot
Rip-
it.
rip
You went
television.
too far.
It's gone.
You'll never see that television again.
Okay, so this is a sort of mechanical thing. They don't give you any prompt, and at every point up until this game, you've been given a prompt to do something. Like it always like highlights green or whatever.
Oh, well, go look at the television. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not looking at the television.
We're looking at this.
Try to move the camera
Forces.
to the right.
Well, the television's an important detail, but if you press anything, you get this prompt. So this was one of those things where, again, it was trying to entice you to slow down and observe. Usually they give you the prompt, but in this case they just gave you no prompt, and eventually you're just going to be like, okay, what's going on, and press a button. And then you're going to get this, to which she replies, oh, it looks like he's spaced out. Get back on the 65, head north, and take the first right after the artificial limb factory. Okay.
Oh, the artificial limb factory.
From there, your arrival at the zero is basically inevitable. Keep your eyes open, especially in the dark. The image on the TV is the image of the barn, but it's like not the barn, it's something else.
Yeah.
That's a relevant detail. It'll come up. Almost every detail that seems strange and off is something that is going to come up again. And the way it comes up is usually somewhat surprising.
I don't know those transitions.
She's gone.
That's also an easy, huh? Makes you feel strange that she's gone now.
Everybody you talk to disappears.
Yeah, interesting that is.
Maybe it's good you didn't go see her cousin.
Well, we're going to now because we have to fix her fucking TV. Alright, so.
Well, she told you how to get to the zero.
Well, she told us how to get... Well, she didn't tell us how to get to the zero, in a way. She told us where to go next, in which our arrival at the zero will be inevitable.
Yeah.
If you looked at the graveyard, would you see her name on one of the gravestones?
Yeah.
Probably, let's see.
Would you see your name on one of the gravestones?
Oh no, I hope.
Now I have to run all the way back up that
Oh,
hill.
sorry, I made you run all the way back.
And now his leg is broken, so it takes 5
Not
times
yet.
as long. Oh.
Ian, spoilers.
Nowakowski,
Marquez.
Padilla, and Marquez.
Uh-oh.
Well, it could be her parents.
Could be.
Or
I
children.
think you were talking to a ghost.
Could have been.
I don't want to immediately assume it was a ghost.
Oh no, of course not.
Definitely ghosts.
I want to stutter first a little bit. I think it
Yeah.
was a ghost.
Music.
Hey, there's some banjos.
Yeah,
Are those the guys from the basement?
I don't think so.
Are you talking to the dog again?
Yep.
It's not back here.
All right.
You know, you called her creepy, but you're the one talking to the dog. I just want to throw that out.
It's true. So there's another cool thing they do, obviously. They actually have the source. They do this a lot, and there's actually a fancy film name for this technique, but it's when you have the source of the audio on screen incorporated into the scene. A really good example of this is in Shaun of the Dead when they're in the bar beating up the zombies,
Yeah.
and they beat up the zombies to the beat because that's the music playing from the jukebox.
Yeah.
That is a particular technique in filmmaking, and where you incorporate audio that is visually created on screen into the scene. Cool.
Is it a Greek chorus? Somebody says Greek chorus.
Not quite a Greek chorus, but it sounds like
Greek
it.
chorus.
I guess a chorus that's Greek, but I mean there are choral Greek like written things. Anywho,
So go north.
Northeast to the artificial limb factory.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's probably it.
Looks like a factory.
It's a factory. Do they make artificial limbs?
Yo.
Chorus.
Artificial limb factory. Yeah. When you go east,
The style of this game is so cool.
It's really interesting, and a lot of the
you're
and
not
like
going east. Aren't you supposed to go east?
I'm supposed to go east.
I thought.
East.
I hope I remember that right.
Well, you look on the
So, according to Wikipedia, John,
Uh-huh.
the technique which you're talking about is called Mickey Mousing.
What?
That doesn't sound
I
right.
think you're looking up the wrong.
Has Wikipedia ever been found?
I think that's not right. It has a fancy name.
Synchronized mirror parallel scoring.
It's also in
Music,
Baby
accompanied
Driver.
music with the
You know the
actual
movie
voice.
Baby Driver? They use the same technique in Baby Driver, where the scene matches the music in like a weird way.
Oh, that is
But yeah.
animation.
That's it.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Birdman.
alright, so what the
What
fuck is
is the name? Or the unbearable lightness of being, or whatever the fuck it's called.
Matching movements
Take
with
the
music.
first right after the artificial.
well, this is after the artificial
Is that
effect.
right? Okay.
I think so.
Now you're backtracking.
Stay on it.
Well,
But after it, so
Would you, if it was up here, would it be like this right? and
Yeah, I
this
think so.
I would have gone on 88, but yeah, I don't know. You can interpret that
Yeah.
several ways.
This is a common theme of this. Again, and you were lost when you did this. You're kind of supposed to get lost.
Unreal?
They intentionally choose language that implies something different depending on how you look at it.
Diegesis or diegesis?
Diegesis, I think so.
Diegetic
Diegetic sound, yes. So they do some diegetic sound in Kentucky Route Zero as well.
Okay, yeah.
And
that
Mickey
does make
Mouse.
sense.
Good job, Infinite Mouse. I don't think that's right, Jeff.
Yeah, you can say it's not right.
I did. I'll say it again.
So another thing they do a lot in Kentucky Route Zero is they switch the perspective.
7 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'll say it this last little bit. They introduce a lot of the themes in these like first bits, so it's good that we get to them.
Do you? I don't know if you want to say it on stream if it's a spoiler or not. Do you actually reach the zero in Act
Yes.
1? Okay.
You do.
Okay.
You do reach the zero in Act 1. What the zero is open for interpretation, though.
It's very, very strange. That's when the game takes quite an interesting turn.
Yep. And you go to such lovely places as the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces. Weather's about to turn. Alright. So now we're at this like abandoned mine.
Well, I don't think we should go into an abandoned mine.
Too late.
I'm just saying, like,
You should have thought of that before you went into the abandoned mine.
It's true.
why are we going to the like?
Well, this is where we were told to go.
No. We were told to go the first right after the artificial limb factory. We weren't told to stop and enter a mine. That is the choice you made.
That's true. So now we're actually in the perspective of another character.
Oh.
Which is a thing this game will do a lot, is it'll put you in the perspective of another character having a conversation with yourself, which is what we're sort of being primed to do here. So we're having a phone conversation, and I believe most of the context of the phone conversation is getting evicted from her apartment.
Oh, you can choose to get cut off. That's interesting.
Yeah.
No work tomorrow. Stranger? Wait, are you talking to
I'm talking
you
to
as the
myself
other
as
per-
Shannon.
Oh my god.
See ya. Infinite nutshell. Yes. So we are talking to Conway as Shannon.
I think do you believe in ghosts is not good conversation starter.
But doesn't you could start the conversation however you want. Well, of the options. So yeah, lots of cool things about the kind of like the setup here, but a lot of the best things about Kentucky Route Zero are the visual design and the writing. Yeah, you kind of keep experiencing the story. Hopefully we can get to the mine very briefly. Sometimes I feel haunted myself. bad decisions, I guess. Wasted youth.
Yes, even she thinks you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, no. I delivered for 5 Dogwood Drive.
It's probably on Dogwood Drive Street. She was.
Oh shit.
Oh, you found her cousin.
She's a ghost too.
She's the one who fixes televisions.
Did she tell you that too? Of course she did. So again, we're sort of setting up a lot of this, like...
Stop that. Stop saying those things. That's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
Choose that option.
Everybody in this universe is very strange.
Yep. Weaver's not a puzzle. She's a mystery. Aha! Maybe Conway. So...
Are they gonna fall in love?
Well, they are opposite genders in the same narrative, so...
It's true. They don't, no. I don't think so, at least.
That's fair.
Maybe they do. Hard to say. You know, you can have an intimate and close relationship with someone and not be in love.
It's true.
Let's see what kind of topology. Topology, okay. Topology. That's the science of continuous space, my friend. All right. So, we probably only have a couple minutes here, but 2 minutes. So there is, like, you know, more mechanical ideas that get sort of explored in this act and introduced to you. But alas, we are at the end of our time. But I will say a few things about Kentucky Route Zero and about sort of like the way it changed a lot of how I think about things. A lot of the time in game design, the way you present a piece of information changes what the player is going to do or think about it. And usually how we think of that as game designers is we think about, like, if you tell someone a piece of information like, you need red keys to get into red doors, that is different than saying there are red keys. These are the same kind of pieces of information, but the thing you're saying implies a different outcome or a different action for the player.
It makes them think about it.
It makes you think about it
Puts
differently.
more weight on them to like put the connect the dots, so to speak.
Kentucky Route Zero is doing that, but with your emotions. And that is how almost all of the design process decision making in Kentucky Route Zero works. Is trying to get you to think and observe things differently based on how pieces of information are presented to you. Which is a very weird sort of thing to do.
All right, well, thanks for sharing some of it with us. Again, we've been
thanks, John.
Digital Eclipse. We'll be back in 1 week to stream. I think we're going to do Gunstar Heroes
Oh, hell yeah.
next week. Again, I'm Ian, this is Johnny and Alex, and off camera is Justin, and you might have briefly seen Jeff peer his head in earlier.
We're over here.
There is this Jeff.
He's going to peer his head in again.
Hold on, not yet. He's almost
Oh,
there.
We'll see you next week.
Oh, there he
See ya.
is. There he is. You got him.
Sweet.